RTV6, Indianapolis This Week.
Welcome to Indianapolis This Week. I'm Rafael Sanchez. Today marks 1 week from the deadly mass shooting in Las Vegas. The investigation continues into what led to the actions of shooter Stephen Paddock before he took his own life. Now heating up in Washington and across the country, the debate over whether new regulations on guns, ammunition, and a component used in the Vegas shooting that many people did not know was even legal. As with previous mass shootings, this debate has featured some of the same talk from both sides, some favoring bans or restrictions on certain types of guns versus those who believe the Second Amendment ensures the rights of Americans to own those weapons. But there appears to be some agreement that something should be done about bump stocks. It's a device used by the Las Vegas shooter that causes rifles to fire multiple shots similar to an automatic weapon.
This device has no purpose but to convert an already deadly weapon into a completely lethal carnage force multiplier.
We know that both members of both parties in multiple organizations are planning to take a look at bump stocks and related devices. We certainly welcome that, would like to be part of that conversation.
That's the word from the White House. Republicans seem to get a green light on targeting bump stocks when the National Rifle Association issued a statement this week saying they'd be open to more regulations on those devices. One member of Congress who says a ban on bump stocks is not enough is Andre Carson. The Indianapolis Democrat spoke out in favor of new gun control measures more than any other member of Indiana's delegation. He tells Indianapolis This Week it's simply too easy for people to buy and stockpile guns that cause numerous casualties in a short amount of time.
I just met with some of my congressional colleagues from Chicago who gave me numbers about maybe 5 to 10% of the firearms in Chicago come from Indiana. Another 11 to 15% come from Wisconsin. And the availability of these guns is unacceptable, particularly assault weapons. And the government has a job, but local municipalities have a job and state legislatures have a job as well. So we have to work together. We cannot allow another unfortunate tragedy like the one in Vegas to cause us to get serious about these issues. We must be very preemptive.
That was Congressman Carson talking to our Katie Hines. Carson calls himself a supporter of the Second Amendment, but he says the country should strengthen its system of background checks for those wishing to buy guns. And the Democrat says more has to be done to keep those with mental illnesses from acquiring and keeping those weapons.
I'm a lifetime permit holder. As I said, I was at the firing range a few weeks ago. As a former police officer, I'm proudly train as often as I can to make sure I'm still proficient, but I want other people to experience at least some degree of training so that they know how to properly handle a firearm, how to properly clean a firearm. The objective is not to make folks experts, but it is to teach them how that the reality is that owning a firearm is a great responsibility, and we have to be mindful of children in that regard. We have to be mindful of other people in that regard, and we just can't use the Second Amendment as a cover to have reckless behavior.
This issue goes beyond Capitol Hill. Here at home, we'll have a better idea this week whether changes to state gun laws could be on the General Assembly's agenda in 2018. A panel studying whether to eliminate the license required to carry a handgun is scheduled to meet for the final time on Thursday. The group has been discussing whether to allow people to openly carry a firearm in public. The Joint Committee on Judiciary and Public Policy will determine whether to make recommendations to the full General Assembly at that meeting.
We spent about 9.5 hours in the last 2 months debating that issue, hearing the pros and the cons of both sides of it, the concerns of the law enforcement and the concerns of those people who are looking out for our Second Amendment rights. And so we're certainly going to discuss the issue and debate it and to see whether or not there are policy issues that need to be changed.
Supporters of constitutional carry say the process to apply for a permit is burdensome, they say. Opponents worry about the impact to public safety. Major outside money is already funneling into the Indiana's U.S. Senate race more than a year before the general election. Americans for Prosperity is announcing a $1.9 million ad buy in Indiana, targeting Senator Joe Donnelly. The conservative political advocacy group is calling on Donnelly to simplify the tax code. The Donnelly campaign is responding, saying the ad ignores the fact that the senator has been one of the few members of Congress who've tried to work in a bipartisan fashion on that issue. This week, reported tensions between President Trump and Secretary of State Rex Tillerson went public. Several reports say that Tillerson is not a fan of the president's behavior and has threatened to resign on multiple occasions. One of those times was back in July after the president's controversial political speech to a Boy Scouts jamboree. Tillerson also reportedly referred to the president as a moron in a meeting. And later, the Secretary of State was counseled by Vice President Pence to work within the administration's framework and to be more respectful.
I'm not going to deal with petty stuff like that. I mean, this is what I don't understand about Washington. Again, I'm not from this place, but the places I come from, we don't deal with that kind of petty nonsense.
Both the spokesperson for the State Department later flatly denied that Mr. Tillerson had ever thought about stepping down. This week, the city of Indianapolis announced some big plans to sue some of the biggest drug companies in America. Specifically, they're going after the makers and distributors of opioid pain medications, drugs like Vicodin and Percocet, just to name a few. The city says those drugs specifically are the reasons we're seeing the heroin epidemic. The mayor of Indianapolis is bringing in a local law firm to help with the lawsuit, saying it's time to hold those drug companies liable.
It is not acceptable for the city of Indianapolis to continue to stand idly by without taking advantage of every possible opportunity to hold people accountable and to arrest the continued development of this epidemic that affects all of us.
The city expects to file the lawsuit later this year. The mayor says they will try to recoup some of the city's costs of treating people whom overdosed or who are getting treatment. Almost two-thirds of Indiana schools are celebrating some high marks when it comes to accountability. And this week, the Department of Education announced that 62% received A's or B's for the last school year, but others are receiving failing marks. That includes 28 Indianapolis public schools, a little more than 40% of the buildings in that district. IPS spokesperson Carrie Klein-Black says intervention teams are already heading to those affected schools. She says the teams will find out the reasons for the lower marks and then craft a comprehensive school-specific plan to make changes.
It's not a one-size-fits-all. We don't anticipate that there will be a one-size-fits-all. So what one school may deem as this is how we want to tackle this problem and this is the way we think will best improve our student performance may be completely different from what another school says.
We reached out to other school districts that had schools with some failing marks. In Martinsville, the superintendent has increased the number of teachers in one grade to ensure smaller class sizes. In Warren Township on the east side of Indianapolis, administrators are pushing teachers to try new learning methods as part of a new strategy. That strategy is called a culture of innovation. So will Congress take on the issue of gun control? That is a big question. But are new laws even necessary? Our political insiders tackle that and much more next as you're watching Indianapolis This Week, only on RTV6.
Rallies and checkers. Fast foodies know the deal.
It is now time for our political insiders to debate the big issues of the week. To my left, Eric Berman with WIBC State House reporter, Phil Johnson with the Democratic State Party, and conservative commentator Abdul Hakim Shabazz, who also this morning is a self-proclaimed instigator. Your word,
That's
is that
right.
correct?
That's right.
On the issue of gun control, we saw the just horrific images from Las Vegas and already the call to change gun laws in our country. Do we need to change the laws or current laws enough?
Well, one of the things I think everybody needs to remember is bad, evil people will always figure out a way to do bad, evil things. You can pass every law in the book. Murder has been against the law since humankind first showed up on this planet. People have been killing each other for millions of years. The challenge is, can you do enough tinkering to maybe close some of these loopholes, maybe address that mental health issue, where I think Republicans and Democrats actually do have some agreement with each other on the issue of gun control and access to weaponry. But like I said, you can pass every law in the book. Bad guy's still going to do, unfortunately, what a bad guy wants to do.
I think Abdul's right. There are some opportunities opportunities here to close some loopholes. I think 90% of Americans believe that background checks are a good place to start. I think that would be something that we could get done.
You know, Congress historically has not been in a rush to pass gun bills, in particular Republican Congresses have not rushed to pass gun bills. The one I think probably will pass this time is this issue of the bump stocks, this device that Stephen Paddock apparently had that turns a semi-automatic into an automatic. You've got universal agreement that, you know, there's no need for this. Automatic weapons are illegal for civilian use. The NRA supports limits. The Republicans say they'd support limits. The White House says they're looking at it. I would expect that one will pass.
Is there really a deep desire, though, to deal with this issue beyond the issue of the bump stocks, which turns, as you can see from this imagery right now, that turns a legal rifle into a semi-automatic, which then becomes the illegal part? Is there really a desire to change any laws? It didn't happen after Sandy Hook, and in this case, where you had nearly 60 people killed and almost 500 injured, is this the time, or will this also just come and go with the next debate of the week?
I think that because of the nature and how this happened probably changes the dynamics, because unlike maybe a Sandy Hook or West Virginia,
those were kids,
or even my alma mater, Northern Illinois University, back in 2005, where there was a major shooting. This wasn't somebody who was on the ground in the middle of the crowd that maybe somebody who's doing concealed carry could have fired back and maybe taken out. This was somebody, you know, 35th floor window, 400 feet, basically doing human target practice. And for some reason, I think that dynamic sort of maybe changes the debate, because you can't.
So yes, on bump stocks, but not. Are you talking about overall changes?
I think we will see a shift in the debate over time.
I think we have to have this conversation, and it's a difficult one.
But I'm tired of having but we are tired of having the conversation. I mean, beyond the bump stocks, can you really do anything else, or is it necessary?
Abdul mentioned mental health issues, and I think that's something where he even mentioned there's some common ground, and I agree with him there. I think something like 60% of Americans with a mental health issue didn't seek treatment last year. Let's take the conversation there as well. And I think there is some common ground. If Abdul and I can agree, then we can agree.
Eric, at the State House, there'll be a discussion about gun legislation, not in any way associated to what happened in Las Vegas, but the possibility to be able to carry your weapon legally, openly. Will that pass? Will the legislature say that's a good idea in light of the national conversation?
Too soon to tell. In fact, there's a couple of gun bills that they're looking at. There's also one to remove permit requirements, that unless there's a reason to deny it, you're automatically allowed to carry a gun. Both of those have a good chance of getting a hearing. I'm skeptical, but I wouldn't rule out the possibility that they would pass.
The other big issue this week is the issue of the city of Indianapolis going after the opioids manufacturers, those that make Percocet and Vicodin. Is that good public policy, and will we see anything out of that? Because I'm going to imagine that's going to take many years to see a federal court judge.
Write this down. I'm actually going to give Joe Hogshead credit for this one. So it is nothing. Do not attempt to adjust your sets at home. This is actually for real here.
It is Resurrection Sunday. Happy Easter.
Yeah, exactly. No. Looking at the question is going to be in litigation. This is really sort of a replay of the old tobacco lawsuits of the 1990s. In my days at the Illinois Attorney General, we were involved in that litigation. The question is going to be, when the drug manufacturers and distributors, what do they know about the level of addiction, and did they conceal that information, from doctors, from hospitals, from patients, so that when you use the product as they prescribed it, would you become more addictive? And you look at what's more opioid deaths and traffic deaths, 31% increase in cases in juvenile court. I think the city does have a case. The trick is going to be in the proof of, can you draw that connection? But I got to give credit where credit's due.
Agreeing with Abdul again, which I can't believe. Mayor Hogshead's taken action, and that's important. This is absolutely wreaking havoc in our communities, and we've got to do something. So I think that the mayor is absolutely doing the right thing here.
But is this a feel-good kind of thing? And I know I'm talking about drugs, but is this an issue that we're just going to feel like, yeah, we're doing something about it, when this lawsuit may take years? We might not even see the outcome of this thing, because, as you can imagine, those drug companies are going to push back.
Well, but that's the nature of litigation, and the city apparently is prepared to do that. We're not the only city or municipality or state to do that. New Jersey, about an hour after Mayor Hogshead announced this suit, announced that they're going to do the same thing. They're the fourth state to pursue this kind of litigation. We'll see where this leads. The guy at the end of the couch is the one with the JD after his name. But the one company, you look at Endo Health, which is one of the companies that Erwin Levin, the city's attorney on this, said he's going to be targeting. Endo makes Opana. Opana is the drug that is blamed for essentially single-handedly causing the HIV epidemic in Scott County. That's a drug that was so addictive that the FDA basically put a headlock on the company and said, you've got to take this off the market. So that they start out in, one would think, a dicey legal position.
I mean, and the same thing too, real quickly here. The same thing was said about the tobacco companies. They're like, there's no way you'll be able to squeeze money out of the tobacco companies. Billions of dollars later, here we are.
You get the last word. Thank you so much. Next on Indianapolis This Week, thank you to our insiders. Next on this program, lessons learned the hard way. What an Indianapolis chef hopes is a teaching moment for people whom she says made the wrong assumptions.
Good Morning Indiana, weekdays beginning at 4:30 a.m.
Was it just a misunderstanding or was it racism? It involves a woman we featured on this program as part of Erica Fly's 6 in the City. She was looking for a farm that could supply her nonprofit with meat to distribute in food deserts. But she and her partner did not get the welcome that they expected when they visited one of the staples of Central Indiana's farm-to-table movement. RTV6's Derek Thomas has this story.
2 African-American women walked into the Tyner Pond Farm Market and said they wanted to buy high-quality meat in bulk. They said they were shocked with the response they got from the clerk.
And she said, well, I think our meat may be a little too pricey for you.
Oya Woodruff is better known as Chef Oya for a seafood restaurant she operates at 34th and Keystone Avenue called The Trap. But the meat that she wanted to purchase was for a charity she and her partner have started called JusticeCorpCharity.com. Its goals are homeless outreach and to provide food for people in food deserts. Tyner Farms is renowned for its meat, and Woodruff wanted to possibly buy up to 100 pounds of meat on a weekly basis. But now she won't be buying it from them.
It was an instance of like ignorance and casual racism. Like, how can you ascertain what I can and cannot afford by just simply looking at who I am, by just simply looking at me? Like, what would make you say that?
Amy Baggett, the owner of Tyner Pond Farm, publicly apologized for the incident on Facebook. She said, "We failed in our customer service. We failed as kind, caring humans, and we failed to be included in an amazing and important partnership." Baggett declined our offer to do an on-camera interview. Woodruff accepted the apology and called the incident a teaching moment.
Treat people with the same dignity and respect as you would want someone to treat you, and as you would want your family or anyone else to be treated.
Owner Amy Baggett says all of her employees will now receive implicit bias training, and they will get that training as quickly as possible. In Greenfield, Derek Thomas, RTV6.
And we're told that Tyner Pond Farms did confer with Woodruff and recommended other farms that she could work with. This week, fans of the Indy 11 showed their support for the victims of Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. 2 teams, 1 goal. On a night, the moonlight challenged the big lights at Carroll Stadium. The Indy 11 and Puerto Rico soccer team played the game delayed because of Hurricane Maria, while both teams had their hearts and heads in the game. Those from the Caribbean island were playing to re-energize the spirit of people living with limited water and electricity.
And they are in dire need of help. I didn't know wind could do this, but for 5.5 hours, our concrete building was swaying in the wind.
IUPUI's Latino Students Association volunteered to help collect donations during halftime.
Hopefully with everything we give to them right now, it might not fix everything, but it's definitely going to help some way.
We're just praying for them to get better.
While the focus was on hurricane relief, the roar from the fans put unity aside in the spirit of competition.
I think this is a welcome distraction for the players as well. Sure. But yeah, for 90 minutes we're here for Indy, but after and before, obviously we're here for Puerto Rico.
I'm glad we can be a part of this initiative to help them get back on their feet.
In a game where goals matter, this one netted a desire to inspire fellow Americans on an island slammed by a hurricane, yearning to claim a victory over their current situation. The Indy 11 and the Puerto Rican team also held a fundraiser in downtown Indy the night before the game. And by the way, it was a great night for the Indy 11 and the fans. The team won that game with a score of 2-1. If you're looking for other ways to help the people of Puerto Rico, the Jazz Kitchen and the Group La Plaza will host a concert and dance this coming Saturday, October the 14th, beginning at 5 o'clock there at the Jazz Kitchen in Broad Ripple. Tickets range from $20 to $50. Proceeds from the event will benefit hurricane relief. We'd love for you to follow us on social media. Check us out at Indy This Week on Twitter, and be sure to like us on the RTV6 Facebook page. Next, Lauren Casey joins us with The Six, a look at what's happening around town in the coming week. You're watching Indianapolis This Week.
Temperatures in the 70s today and the lower 70s to the south and east this afternoon because of clouds and showers from Hurricane Nate. This is the very northwest edge then of some of that precipitation coming back into central Indiana late this afternoon and this evening. The least likely area to see rain will be north and west of Indianapolis, the most likely east and southeast. I-70 toward Richmond, I-74 down to Greensburg and Cincinnati, and then south on I-65 by 11 o'clock tonight. Even some showers into the western half of the state. Temperatures will be cool because of the clouds and rain. You see how the rainfall potential is greater to the east and southeast. Some spots could pick up ½ an inch of rain. If you're tailgating today for the Colts game, you get into the afternoon hours. Temperatures in the 70s. The chance for rain increases after the game. Here's your 7-day planner. Back to work tomorrow. 78 with just a slight chance of showers. Better chance of rain on Wednesday.
Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. I'm Lauren Casey. It's time for The Six, so let's take a look at 6 things coming up this week in Indy. Well, shoppers, get your carts ready. IKEA is opening up this Wednesday in Fishers. Folks can start lining up as early as Monday morning for all of the freebies and good deals. Well, you can sip and savor some of the finest spirits here this weekend at the Whiskey and Fine Spirits Expo. That's at Montage on the north side. You can also meet the distillers on site. This event runs from 5 until 9 p.m. on Friday. Conceal your identity with a masquerade at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. This is a fundraiser for the Simon Youth Foundation and the Pacers Foundation. Pacers players will be on hand. This event is Saturday night and includes dinner and live music. Well, you can get into the holiday spirit here for Halloween at Conner Prairie. The Interactive History Park brings back the Headless Horseman tales this week starting on Thursday. It's all based on the legend of Sleepy Hollow, so maybe you'll spot this ghost during your time in Prairie Town. The 9th annual German Fest kicks off this Saturday in downtown with yodeling, wiener dog races, strongman competitions, and of course German food and brews. This event runs from noon until 8 p.m. Plus, you can bring home a furry friend, an adoptable friend here this weekend. Stop by the State Fairgrounds for another Indy Mega Pet Adoption event. This one runs Saturday and Sunday from noon until 6. The adoption fees are just $30, so you can do your part to make some space at our local shelters and give animals forever homes. That's what's on tap this week in Indy. Back to you.
Lauren, thank you. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.